Random is a mysterious word, and sometimes it turns out a bit absurd. You better know when you're a part of some of these Moments with Mr. Mark.
When you hear the word sacrifice, what does your mind go to? Well, I think about the Old Testament, way back when, before Jesus' birth on earth happened, and I think of the animal sacrifices that were made before God, that God told His people to make to Him. Now, way back in Genesis 22, we get to see a middle of the life of someone named Abraham. Now, Abraham had great faith in God. That means that whatever God told him, he believed immediately, without hesitation. He would follow and do it. He didn't obey all the time, but he was very much known for his great faith. Now, let's take a look at this story, because he was told to make a sacrifice, and it was not an animal. It's in Genesis 22, 1 through 14. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham." And he said,
"Here I am."
He said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his young men,
"Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you."
And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went both of them together. And Isaac said to his father Abraham, "My father." And he said,
"Here I am, my son."
He said, "Behold, the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham said,
"God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son."
So they went both of them together. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said,
"Here I am."
He said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram, caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the name of that place,
"The Lord will provide."
as it is said to this day, "On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided." First off, wow, what an amazing story of God's provision so that Isaac would not have to die. The ram was provided so that Abraham wouldn't have to kill his son. Abraham passed the test. There are 2 things that I want us to think about today. We could talk about so many different things from this passage, but there are 2 today that I want us to think about. The first one is, did you notice Abraham's faith? He didn't question God. We don't read in the scripture that Abraham said, "Oh, I'm not sure if I really want to do that. That's a hard thing. I'm scared." He followed through. He heard God, he trusted him, and he was going to obey him. And he did. And he passed the test. I hope that we have that kind of faith, that whatever God tells us to do, we're going to do it, that He is first priority in our lives, like He was for Abraham. The second thing, do you see anything familiar with this story? This was way before the time of Jesus' birth on earth, but guess what? It's a huge foreshadowing. It's a huge, hey, guess what? This is going to happen in the future story telling us that Jesus is our ultimate sacrifice. He's like the ram in the thicket. He came to earth and He died on the cross for you and for me. He was perfect. He didn't do anything wrong, and He died for you and for me. He was a replacement so that we wouldn't have to be on the cross. It's so much like how Isaac was put on the altar and how he was the one that was going to die, but the ram was provided. Jesus was provided for us. But Jesus is alive. He doesn't stay dead like the ram. He is alive, and He wants a friendship with you. And this offer is for anyone who gives their lives to Christ. Whoever does that will be saved. But here's the question today. Do you have faith that obeys God no matter what the cost is.